afternoon to all. I want to congratulate our Vice Chairman, Mr. Carlos Loureiro, to such an important conference like this one, like we are concerning to work and live in Norway, and to welcome and to thank too to Mr. Bent Bakken, the first Secretary of the Kingdom of Norway Embassy, to be here and to give the opportunity to the Ordem dos Engenheiros to present to our fellow members the possibility to debate such an important issue that we will do here today. So, following the program, I would like to thank to all of you for coming to this conference. And this conference, as you know, will deal with the opportunities to work in and live in Norway. And right now, I would like to invite to speak the Vice Chairman of Portuguese Engineers, to Mr. Carlos Loureiro.
My first words are addressed to Mr. Bent Bakken. I don't know if the pronunciation is right. First Secretary of the Royal Norwegian Embassy, our special welcome greetings. And as well, I want to extend those greetings to all entities involved in this conference and the job offers to which it relates. Firstly, the European network, EURES, whose activity has been and will be fundamental to our today's event. And also to the Norwegian companies that are present and expressed interest in recruiting Portuguese engineers. Today, Ordem dos Engenheiros is participating in this kind of initiatives with the aim of facilitating the knowledge by our members of job opportunities in other countries. But we do so with mixed feelings. On one hand, we are concerned with the intensive exit of Portuguese engineers pressured by a lack of professional opportunities in Portugal. On the other hand, we know that an experience of professional practice outside our country is, in most cases, a higher valuation of the personal and professional skills. My example, I exercised my profession outside Portugal for 10 years, and I really worth much the importance of this experience. Furthermore, we look this attention to young Portuguese engineers as a recognition of their personal and professional skills and as a positive assessment of our prestigious engineering schools. In today's section, we add to this positive side two other circumstances. First, Norway is one of the best countries in the world to achieve international work experience in terms of human development in general and in particular in economic, social and cultural points of view. The second circumstance, one of the companies with the largest estimated number of announced recruitments intends to establish a working base in Lisbon, which will allow some of you to stay in our country. I wish to address a special word to our colleagues that will apply in those processes. To all of them, our best wishes for personal, familiar and work successes. And also the affirmation of our strong conviction that all of you will return to Portugal and bring us important contributions to our development. Engineer is an indispensable factor for the well-being and quality of life. Ordem dos Engenheiros will search, track your routes and as much as possible to mitigate the effects of the distance. All my best wishes to all of you.
So I would invite to speak the first secretary of the Kingdom of Norway Embassy. I think we have a problem. Tem que desligar o seu So I would like to invite to speak the first secretary of Mr. Bent Bakken, the first secretary of the Kingdom of Norway Embassy, to have a word.
Muito obrigado. Senhora Vice-Presidente da Ordem dos Engenheiros, senhoras e senhores engenheiros, ladies and gentlemen. Antes de mais, queria agradecer o amável convite a falar a vós hoje aqui e agradeço também o interesse que manifestam todos pela Noruega por estar presente aqui. A Noruega é um país que eu posso, a grande surpresa, aconselhar. Com a vossa autorização, vou continuar em inglês. I am the black sheep of my family. My grandfather was an engineer, a mechanical engineer, graduated from the University of Trondheim. My father is an engineer, mechanical engineer, graduated from the University of Trondheim in Norway. My older brother is a mechanical engineer, graduated from the University of Trondheim. And what did I do with my life? Well, I wasted it studying languages and history at the University of Oslo and in France, which, by the way, turned out to be quite all right as well. But I would like to talk to you today more about my family than about myself. It was a great shock for my father the day I came home from school and told him that I was cutting out physics, but we've always managed to keep a civilized tone around the dinner table. The three men that I mentioned to you, my grandfather, my father, my older brother, they are three generations of Norwegian engineers, representative of three eras of Norwegian history where engineers have played a crucial role. Immediately after the Second World War, my grandfather joined the collective effort of reconstruction of the country. He moved with my grandmother to a tiny village at the end of a fjord in the west of Norway, surrounded by high mountains. And there he worked in an aluminium plant. And what do you do there? Well, you take advantage of the resource of hydroelectric power and you convert the natural forces available in our country to an export product. He got my father there and they moved to another small town in Norway and worked in the minting industry. My father graduated from the University of Trondheim in 1975. He could at that time not find any work as an engineer in Norway. This is not so long ago, this is only about 40 years ago. He could not find work as an engineer, so he drove the bus for a year in Trondheim. When after that he moved to what was to become my hometown, Stavanger, I don't think he had ever been there before. I don't think he liked the idea of moving there much, I must admit, but it was where he found work. What was Stavanger in 1975? Well, it was something of a Norwegian Klondike. It was a small, relatively sleepy town, suddenly woken up by the sound of American accents, British accents, Italian accents, French accents, people who had come from all over Norway and from all over the world in the search of black gold. And this black gold is what has now become the rather famous Norwegian oil. And yes, many, if not most of these people moving from around Norway, from abroad to Stavanger in that time, were engineers. My older brother, as for him, he graduated with his degree in engineering in a time when engineers wondered more about what kind of job they would be willing to take than about where to find work. The petroleum industry, which my father was one of the first Norwegians to work in, has changed Norway over only one generation. And paradoxically, it has been closing down much of the traditional industry around Norway, where it would have been natural for an engineer in my grandfather's time to seek work. But various industries have sprung up around the edges of the oil and gas sector. Norway today has world-leading clusters in subsea technologies, in offshore equipment, in naval construction. And as any country, perhaps even more as other countries, because of our somewhat complex geography, we need tunnels, bridges, airports, roads. We need our schools and hospitals to be safe. And who do this? Well, engineers do this, and I'm grateful for that. And why do I say that my brother's generation of engineers are also part of a crucial period in Norway? Well, it's because today the situation is that we struggle to find enough engineers for our companies to be able to realize the projects that they seek to realize. And that's, of course, the main reason why we are gathered here today. I want to be a bit careful here today and not promise you a Shangri-La of infinite availability of jobs for any engineer willing to move to Norway. And let me say as well that I fully understand Vice President Loureiro's mixed feelings about a generation of talented young Portuguese engineers feeling more or less obliged to seek work abroad. In Norway, as anywhere else, business goes through cycles. Matching individual skills to the needs of a company is not always straightforward. And of course, there are big challenges when you decide to move yourself and perhaps also your family to a new country. New language, new people around you, new customs. I've just moved here, so I know a bit of the challenges involved. However, it can also be said that Norway's official unemployment rate is at the moment 2.8%. And engineers is one of the professional groups our businesses struggle most to recruit. Already about 1,000 Portuguese engineers have moved to Norway. There are twice as many Portuguese engineers in Norway as there are Norwegians living in Portugal. What we hear from those who have moved is that they feel welcome. Norwegians speak English quite well, so communication is rarely an issue. We also hear that they appreciate the regulated working hours in Norway, which allowed for a good balance between family life and work. And we hear after a while that they find the climate hard to tackle. I won't go much into detail there. What we hear from the Norwegian companies which have recruited Portuguese engineers is that these new colleagues adapt well socially, because Portuguese, as I've learned, also speak very well English in general. That they have a good work ethic and that they contribute to the Norwegian companies with valuable skills and expertise. So the meeting between Portuguese engineers and Norwegian companies is usually a positive meeting. With a daily direct flight from Oslo to Lisbon, it is also relatively easy to take a break and come down here and see the sun for a while when the rain and the snow and the darkness has been weighing on you for too long. That's exactly what Norwegian people do all the time. We are a traveling folk. On behalf of the Norwegian Embassy, I thank you for being here today, for the interest you show in Norway. I look forward to the rest of the conference. Good luck with your career planning. And should you come to Norway, I hope you and your families will find that with a good raincoat and with a pair of skis, there is a lot of fun to be had, and there are quite a few opportunities for a good quality of life. Muito obrigado a todos.
So follow the program. I would like to invite Mr. Nidia Figueiredo, who will give to us an overview of EURES organization, the European Mobility Network.
Bom, para dizer que agradeço também à Ordem dos Engenheiros esta oportunidade que nos dá de divulgar a rede europeia de emprego e, em particular, as oportunidades de trabalho na Noruega. O que eu vou fazer aqui é dar-vos uma ideia geral sobre a rede EURES, onde eu e a Eli trabalhamos. No fundo, se o nervoso miudinho me deixar e eu controlar isso e tiver a fluência das ideias e das palavras para vos explicar, o que pretendo é que fiquem a conhecer a rede, a poder utilizá-la. No fundo, o que vou fazer é como descascar uma laranja, que é para depois irmos ao assunto que de certeza vos trouxe aqui esta sexta-feira. Ok? A rede é uma rede de serviços de emprego ao nível europeu, que é coordenada pela Comissão Europeia e que o que pretende fazer é promover a mobilidade dos trabalhadores a nível transnacional e transfronteiriço na União Europeia e no Espaço Económico Europeu. Portanto, está em todos os países do Espaço Económico Europeu e da Suíça. Podem ver aqui como está distribuída. Abrange 32 países. Os serviços que prestamos são ao nível da informação, do recrutamento e seleção e do aconselhamento. E os instrumentos que temos para fazer esse trabalho. São instrumentos mais tecnológicos, um livre-serviço que é constituído por portais, o portal europeu da rede, o próprio portal português e, no nosso caso, também o Net Emprego, do Instituto de Emprego. E serviços personalizados, que são os Conselheiros EURES. Nós trabalhamos para os candidatos, para as empresas e para os parceiros. Começamos já pelos parceiros, uma vez que estamos aqui na Ordem, que, como outros, as universidades e outros, são nossos parceiros na divulgação destas oportunidades de emprego. Do ponto de vista dos candidatos, aquilo que nós apoiamos é a elaboração dos seus projetos de mobilidade, apoiamos na procura de emprego e na realização da candidatura e damos informações sobre variadíssimos temas que podem ser postos em causa quando a pessoa muda de país para trabalhar, nomeadamente no que diz respeito à segurança social, à proteção no desemprego. E fazemos isso também através de sessões de informação, no atendimento face a face com os candidatos e que, aliás, como podem ver, é aquilo em que eu me sinto mais à vontade, uma vez que eu trabalho num serviço local de emprego, mais conhecido por vós por centro de emprego, e, portanto, o meu dia-a-dia é passado com as pessoas que se sentam à minha frente e não com uma plateia tão grande. Do ponto de vista das empresas, aquilo que fazemos é divulgar as necessidades de recrutamento transnacionais, ou seja, as ofertas de emprego, e deste ponto de vista queria explicar uma coisa que raramente se apercebem, que é, no caso da rede europeia de emprego, que em geral está sediada e integra os serviços públicos de emprego dos vários países, pode integrar outras organizações, mas de uma forma geral, e a maioria dos conselheiros EURES em toda a Europa estão nos serviços públicos de emprego. Neste caso, as ofertas chegam ao nosso serviço aqui em Portugal, obrigatoriamente via o serviço público de emprego dos outros países, nomeadamente no caso da Noruega. As empresas não nos chegam diretamente, não podem. E desde logo isso dá, no fundo, é o que faz a garantia das ofertas que divulgamos. Há uma garantia de que as empresas são idóneas e de que as condições de trabalho são as legais no país de que se tratar. Também no caso das empresas, aconselhamos relativamente à questão dos estudos do mercado de trabalho, o aconselhamento na elaboração dos perfis das ofertas e organizamos ações de recrutamento e feiras de emprego para as empresas dos outros países. No caso dos parceiros, essencialmente, são sessões de divulgação, como estas que fazemos, e a partilha de informação também, a propósito dos mercados de trabalho e das competências profissionais que são mais requeridas na Europa. Uma passagem pequena só pelo portal EURES Europa. Há já muitos engenheiros que o conhecem, mas de qualquer forma mostro-vos o portal EURES. As boas notícias que estão aqui registadas, 1.900.000 ofertas, mas isto foi só para olharem mesmo para o site. De qualquer forma, tomem atenção. Estão cá registadas todas as ofertas que foram registadas em todos os serviços públicos de emprego dos países do Espaço Económico Europeu. E isto quer dizer o quê? Que a maior parte delas estão na língua do país. Portanto, as de Portugal em português, as da Finlândia em finlandês, só para tornar mais difíceis as coisas. Há outras que, quando as encontram, estão normalmente assinadas com a bandeira da União Europeia e que são, de facto, aquelas que estão dirigidas para outros públicos, muitas vezes estão em inglês, ou noutras línguas, porque às vezes o que determina a língua da oferta é a língua que se pretende que o profissional fale. É só para olharem a forma de procurar ofertas de trabalho. Podem selecionar através da profissão, podem selecionar o país e ainda dizer se querem, por exemplo, só as ofertas que estão em inglês, enfim, uma pesquisa avançada com vários critérios. Este portal é um mundo de informação. E, nomeadamente, no que diz respeito a viver e trabalhar, normalmente aconselho muito, antes de começar a procurar trabalho, consultar sempre como é viver e trabalhar no país. Porque, às vezes, ir direto à oferta de emprego pode não resultar, tanto pelas formas diferentes como se procura trabalho, como porque o conhecimento do país onde procuramos trabalho é também importante para o conseguirmos lá. Este é o tipo de informação que podem encontrar na secção de Viver e Trabalhar do portal EURES. Como procurar trabalho é muito importante. Os países têm as suas especificidades no que diz respeito às formas de procurar trabalho. A Eli já vai, que eu sei, dar-vos uma ideia de como é que se procura trabalho na Noruega. Mas têm no portal as formas de procurar trabalho em todos os países do Espaço Económico Europeu. E depois outros itens que podem ser muito importantes quando pretendem mudar, sejam eles a nível da Segurança Social e impostos, sejam eles ao nível administrativo e jurídico, do custo de vida, o alojamento, como é que são os sistemas de saúde, de ensino, etc. Porque muitas vezes a mudança também implica mudar a família. Relativamente, eu sei que toda a gente sabe que no Espaço Económico Europeu existe livre circulação, mas ainda assim não estamos livres de alguns registros que podem ser necessários nos países para onde nos mudamos. Só chamar a atenção disso. Relativamente a cidadãos de terceiros países, isso não é assim, não pode, mesmo aqueles que têm vistos de trabalho em Portugal não têm essa facilidade com o visto de trabalho em Portugal, não têm a mesma facilidade nos outros países do Espaço Económico Europeu. É preciso ter em conta isso. Mas no caso dos portugueses e dos que têm dupla nacionalidade, por exemplo, que tenham a nacionalidade portuguesa e outra de país terceiro, podem circular livremente. Os conselheiros EURES. Isto agora vamos falar de nós próprios. Aqui em Portugal nós somos 28, estamos espalhados por todo o país, como podem ver, estamos mesmo disseminados. Trabalhamos nos serviços centrais do Instituto de Emprego e Formação Profissional, nos serviços regionais e a maioria nos serviços locais de emprego, nos centros de emprego, portanto mesmo perto das pessoas. No meu caso, encontram-me no Centro de Emprego de Torres Vedras. E o que fazemos, já vos fui dizendo, facilitamos o acesso à informação, dando a ideia de onde as pessoas podem encontrar a informação e informando. podemos informar sobre os aspectos gerais da legislação em matéria social, laboral e fiscal. Orientamos também sobre as condições de vida e trabalho e aconselhamos as estratégias mais adequadas a ter sucesso na procura de emprego. Além disso, também negociamos e organizamos processos de recrutamento. Aqui no portal EURES encontram os contactos, normalmente diretos, telefónico e de e-mail, de todos os conselheiros europeus, dos portugueses e de todos os europeus. Portanto, têm ao vosso dispor cerca de 850 conselheiros em todo o espaço económico europeu. E é aqui que os podem procurar, inclusivamente, por exemplo, pela língua que falam. Só por curiosidade, por exemplo, na Noruega existe uma conselheira EURES que trabalha no Serviço Público de Emprego norueguês, que se chama NAV, e eu não me atrevo a dizer o extenso, como devem imaginar, que é portuguesa e, portanto, fala português como nós. E esta também é uma forma, às vezes, de procurar alguém que nos aconselhe e que possa falar a nossa língua ou uma língua que nós conheçamos. De uma forma geral, todos têm que saber falar, pelo menos, o inglês. No portal EURES Portugal, que pertence ao IFP, já disse, ao Instituto de Emprego e Formação Profissional, encontramos informação mais direcionada para as questões concretas, nomeadamente, não sei se conseguem ver daí, mas eu tentei pôr alguma coisa atual, estão ali as ofertas da Noruega, e portanto divulgámos-las sempre que nos chegam ofertas da Noruega, nós divulgámos-las também neste portal, bem como todos os eventos que fazemos e onde podem encontrar tanto colegas como empresas norueguesas e dos outros países. Só para vos mostrar também projetos de recrutamento concretos, a NOV vai ter a sua representante aqui, mas também temos as ofertas registadas e divulgadas no nosso portal. No caso do nosso portal, que também tem uma secção sobre Viver e Trabalhar, eu gostava de vos chamar a atenção para a secção de Viver e Trabalhar sobre a Noruega, porque ela tem sido amadurecida há muitos anos pelos colegas, pela equipa de colegas noruegueses e, portanto, tem muita informação específica para nós. Enquanto no EURES Europa encontram informação geral, aqui ela é dirigida e elas têm feito um bom trabalho, um trabalho que já é muito maduro, de muitos anos, neste aspecto, e encontram muitas informações que podem ser essenciais na abordagem dos empregadores noruegueses. Também no Net Emprego, o site onde nós postamos todas as ofertas nacionais e as internacionais. Também só para vos dar uma ideia de como lá estão as ofertas da Noruega. Isto não se consegue fazer maior, mas todas as que ali estão são da Noruega, só para dar um exemplo. Os eventos que fazemos também são boas oportunidades de os candidatos conhecerem as empresas dos países do espaço económico europeu. Anualmente fazemos os Dias Europeus do Emprego, foi há 2 dias, no Porto. Também, pelo menos uma vez por ano, fazíamos um Engineers Mobility Days, normalmente em março, abril. E, além disso, podem sempre assistir aos eventos dos outros países, o European Online Job Days. E têm os sites. Isto é só para vos dar uma ideia do projeto de mobilidade de engenheiros portugueses para a Noruega. Eu não sou personagem nesta história, a Eli e outra colega, mas este trabalho começou a ser feito só por 2 pessoas, pela Eli e pela Luísa Martins, que vai estar aqui depois, que em conversa de colegas de trabalho pensaram que esta era uma boa ideia, uma vez que os engenheiros portugueses já tinham alguma experiência de ir fora do país em projetos universitários. No Erasmus, por exemplo, já tinham a vantagem de ter conhecimentos de inglês. E, por outro lado, outros constrangimentos, como sejam o facto das empresas portuguesas serem bastante pequenas e os engenheiros terem uma sensação de falta de oportunidade de progressão nas suas carreiras e, portanto, esse desejo de as desenvolverem lá fora e mais recentemente, claro, que a diminuição de oportunidades de emprego na área das engenharias também cá em Portugal. As empresas norueguesas reconhecem aos engenheiros portugueses algumas competências que para elas são importantes, nomeadamente o domínio do inglês, a qualidade do sistema de ensino das engenharias, a capacidade que têm de resolver novos problemas, a adaptabilidade, a criatividade. E, além disso, também é um bom argumento a utilidade que têm na abordagem a mercados de língua portuguesa, nomeadamente do Brasil e Angola, porque conhecem a língua e a cultura e têm os conhecimentos do mercado e das pessoas. Só para ter a ideia, porque muita gente manifesta este interesse, também no EURES Europa têm eu escolhi só 2 testemunhos e claro que normalmente o que está lá são casos de sucesso, porque esses exemplos são importantes para as outras pessoas seguirem um caminho semelhante. E, portanto, estes são 2 casos de sucesso de empresas norueguesas que vieram a feiras de emprego em Portugal, nomeadamente a Comatec, a Eli vai ter ofertas deles, que já têm vindo a recrutar engenheiros portugueses. No site, no EURES Europa, existe mesmo uma secção de testemunhos e dicas que, parecendo que não, dá algumas ideias às pessoas de como é que hão de traçar o seu caminho. E acabo por aqui. Desejo a todos sucesso e depois vamos estar disponíveis também para responder a perguntas.
I would like to invite Mr. Eli Syvertsen to speak and to give us an overview how to live and to work in Norway.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the Ordem for inviting me to come here and talk about Norway. And I would also like to thank you for coming to listening to me. I will give a brief introduction to how it is to live and work in Norway. First of all, I would like to explain a little bit how we are organized in Norway. Nidia already explained about the EURES services. The EURES services are placed in NOV, which is it's actually a merger of several services. It's the National Job Center, it's also the National Insurance, and it's also the Welfare Office in Norway. So all kind of benefits you apply to through the NOV office. A little bit about Norway. We are a monarchy, we have a king. We also have our own currency, Norwegian kroner. So €1 is about 8.20 Norwegian kroner. We just had elections, so we just got now a conservative government, which might be good news for many civil engineers in Portugal, because they are promising to build more roads and more railways. So we will need even more engineers. We have now a female prime minister. In Norway, I will talk a little bit also about the cultural issue in Norway, but in Norway we are always on first name terms with each other. So we would call our prime minister not Miss Solberg, but Erna. This also applies of the king. We will also always be on first name terms. Bent introduced Norway a little bit negative, with a lot of darkness. I will have to try to brighten up this impression a little bit. So I could say that I live and work in the Norwegian Riviera, the southern part of Norway. Many have the impression that Norway has little daylight. Some even think we have polar bears in the streets. But I can assure you we don't. And some of the things that surprise Portuguese people coming to Norway the most is actually the weather and the climate. We have big variety of temperatures, ranging from +30 to -30 degrees. And you might think that the big difference in temperature is between the north and the south, but this is not the case. The big difference in temperature is between the coastal areas and the inland. So we have the warm currents from the Mexican Gulf Stream ending in the southwestern part of Norway. So this is influencing the weather and the climate. So this summer I was swimming in 24 degrees in the water. So normally in the south we have between 19 to 24 degrees in the water. Of course, if you would like to go swimming in Tromsø in the very north, it will be a little bit more chilly. Maybe something around what you are used to here, because I find the waters here quite cold. You can find the more cold weather along the borderlines with Sweden, Finland, Russia in the north. You could easily have temperatures ranging to -30 degrees. But the big well, in general, during wintertime, along the coastline where most of the people actually live, the temperatures will range from like 4 or 5 degrees until maybe 5, 6 degrees below zero. So it's not so cold. And very often also in the coastal areas, we don't have a lot of snow. We have actually quite little snow. Whereas, for example, Oslo could have a little bit inland climate. So in Oslo, it could easily be -15 to -20 degrees. We have the Arctic Circle dividing Norway more or less in the middle. Above the Arctic Circle, you will see the midnight sun. So during the summertime, you will have 24 hours of sunshine, which is quite nice. But it is strange to go to bed when you see the sun is up. And then you will have a couple of months in the middle of the winter where you don't see the sun, but you will still have daylight. So it's not that it's completely dark. Whereas in the south of Norway, you will have maybe sunshine until around 11 o'clock at night in the summer, and the sun will rise again like 3:30 in the morning, and the nights are never really dark. Whereas in the most dark months, like December, we will have the sun rising around 9 o'clock, and it will set around 3:30, 4 o'clock. The big difference in wintertime is that when it gets dark, it's like switching off the light, you know, so it gets dark. As regard to being cold in the winter, I have to tell you that the houses are prepared for cold weather. So they are very well insulated. Another thing is that electricity is quite cheap, at least compared with Portugal. So it's not expensive to heat the houses. Yeah. We have a lot of activity. We are very active people. We love sports in Norway. And there is a lot of outdoor activities. We love walking in the mountains. We love skiing. You will see a lot of people like to ride their bike to work. And most workplaces will have a shower so that you can have a shower before you start work. So we are very active. We also have a very high standard of living in Norway. And I think this could be one of the things that attracts also Portuguese people to come to Norway. And also the fact that you actually can have a life outside work. Norway is a quite big country in terms of size. So we are the 7th biggest country in Europe. But in terms of population, we are quite small. So we just turned 5 million inhabitants. And around 12 to 15% of them are immigrants. So the biggest group of immigrants in Norway are by far Polish workers. So there are actually twice as many Polish workers in Norway as there are Swedish, Danish, Icelandic, and Finnish people together. And most of these Polish people, they come from the construction industry. Also, the Polish workers amount to 1/3 of the unemployed people in Norway. So when Bent said that the unemployment rate is 2.6%, 1/3 of those are actually Polish workers. Norway is divided into counties, so we are divided into 19 counties. Our capital is Oslo, quite small, just over 600,000 inhabitants. The other major cities is Bergen, in the western part of Norway, and then of course we also have Stavanger, which is the oil and gas region in Norway. And we have Trondheim and Kristiansand in the very south. We have an active policy in Norway so that we will have all Norway populated. But actually, less than 5% of the Norwegian territory is populated, so we have a lot of space for Portuguese to come. Of course, it's not possible to live all over because we have a lot of fjords and we have a lot of steep mountains. But what we have and can offer is a lot of space. Actually, there are 16 persons living per square meter in Norway, so you can imagine. We have an extremely long coastline. And the shape of Norway, if you actually turn Norway upside down, we will reach all the way down to Sicily in Italy. So this, you can see it's a quite long country. So it's 432 kilometers at the widest and only 6 kilometers at the most narrow part. Our main border is with Sweden. And of course, we don't like Swedish people. This has probably to do with the fact that we have been under Swedish rule. So we have the same relation with Sweden as you have with Spain, I suppose. We understand Swedish perfectly well, but Swedish tend to not understand Norwegian. Yes. Some pictures to try to tempt you to come to Norway and choose Norway. Norway has a lot of waterfalls. And even though we produce gas, we don't use gas in Norway, we export it all. So we only use electricity, and the electricity comes from hydropower, all of it. So the prices of electricity will actually differ depending on the season. So normally in autumn, when it rains, it will be quite cheap with electricity. The same applies for the springtime when the snow is melting. If the winter is dry and cold, the electricity will be a bit more expensive. But you will generally see Norwegian people, we waste a lot of electricity. We keep the lights on all over the house. We will have full heating and open the windows. This is quite typical. We have fantastic nature. For those who would like to walk in the mountains, there are perfect opportunities for that. If you like mountain climbing and if you like rafting, it's super. And of course, I suppose many of you also like to do fishing. I know you think that we eat bacalao all the time, but in fact we don't. We eat actually more meat than fish, but we also like seafood. You will actually see that seafood is much cheaper in Norway than meat. A little bit about the language. In Norway, absolutely everybody speaks English. They will learn English in the first grade in school. And like in Portugal, we don't dub the television. All films, everything is in the original language. We have a lot of dialects, so this could be a little bit frustrating for foreigners coming to Norway. We also have two official languages. It's Standard Norwegian and it's also New Norwegian. But only a small portion of the Norwegian population actually speak New Norwegian, and it's possible to understand once you learn the Standard Norwegian. Norwegian is quite close to Danish and Swedish. For us, it's quite easy to understand Swedish, for many people in Norway, it could be a little bit difficult to understand spoken Danish, at least for those who doesn't live in the south. Because it sounds like they got a potato stuck in the throat. So it sounds a little bit strange. But written Danish is very easy to understand, and you could hardly see the difference between Danish and Norwegian, whereas written Swedish is a little bit more difficult. Most employers would like for you to speak a Scandinavian language when you work in Norway, with the exception of the offshore-related industry, because there the working language is English. But if you decide to go to Norway, even though you can manage perfectly well just with English skills, I do recommend that you learn Norwegian in order to integrate better. So Norwegian is a Germanic language, so it's quite similar to German, but we don't have these horrible long sentences. It's much shorter, and the grammar is more easy. But we have the same way of constructing the vocabulary. So German-speaking people, they learn Norwegian in 2-3 months easily. I know it's hard to learn Norwegian here in Portugal, and I know there are courses offered, but in my opinion, they are much too expensive, and that's why I don't recommend it. Because you will never learn how to speak real Norwegian here in Portugal. What you can do is that you can prepare yourself in learning vocabulary and grammar, and this you can also do online. So I would recommend you, if you want to start to learn Norwegian, to do online courses that are either free of charge or not expensive at all. Here are some examples of Norwegian courses. The one I recommend is campusonline.no. They can offer you Norwegian classes up to the level of B1. And they can also offer you specialized classes in technical Norwegian, health-related Norwegian, so it's quite good. A little bit about the culture. I have been working with Portugal, with Portugal since 2006. And what I discovered was quite surprisingly that Portuguese and Norwegian people are not so different. Norwegian people are quite reserved, just like Portuguese people. In Norway in general, many Norwegians tend to think that Portuguese and Spanish are quite similar. And as you know, you are not at all. Just the way you drive is similar. The thing is that you are much more polite than we are. We are not so polite. That is to say that, first of all, we are always on first-name terms with each other, like I explained to begin with. We will handshake the first time we meet somebody. We don't kiss, unless you are in a relationship, of course. But the next time you meet somebody, it's just hi, or maybe they don't even say hi. And when you are in the office and you leave, you don't have to stop by all the offices saying goodbye, you know? So don't be upset if people are not greeting you all the time. Here, for example, when I go into an elevator, people will say hello, how are you, or something like this. This will never happen in Norway unless you meet somebody that's drunk. Or it could, of course, also be an American person. But it doesn't mean that we are cold. It's just that we are minding our own business. But once you know Norwegian people, you will see we are quite friendly, and you will be invited home straight away. But maybe you are the one who have to take the first step, maybe. In Norway, it's quite a flat structure. It could be hard for you to see who is the boss. We dress also quite informal in Norway, and the boss will also be dressed like everybody else. And the boss will also eat in the canteen with everybody else. So it could be hard to distinguish who is the manager. In Norway, we don't care we don't care for titles. Titles is completely unimportant for us. We don't care if you have a lot of money. What we care about is who you are as a person, and this will gain you respect. We expect the Prime Minister to travel economy class like everybody else. Why should she now have special treatments? So you have to earn your respect. We also enjoy having some space. This is not a problem with Portuguese because you also enjoy your space. You don't like people to be standing too close to you when you speak. For us, it's really threatening. For example, for Spanish people who speaks much louder than you do, for us this means trouble, you know? So we tend to back away a little bit. We are also not known to be very impulsive. We need some time to get to know you. We also have, well, Norway has never been famous for its cuisine. So I suggest that you stick with the Portuguese food if you decide to come to Norway. Of course, our food is better than the English one, but most are. Our lunches are boring. Normally, we just bring a sandwich. But the workday normally starts at 8 o'clock, sometimes 7 o'clock, and it finishes 3:30. So we just have half an hour lunch break. So that's why we don't have time for a big meal. Even though I think it's more healthy the way you eat here with a big meal in the middle of the day. But I do think that you will prefer to go home earlier. I do think so. Sometimes foreigners also think of Norwegian people as a little bit rude. It could be because we don't greet you all the time, and it could also be because we are quite direct in the questions we ask. But it's completely fine to, if you feel that we are being too direct, to say, I'm sorry, I would rather not answer this question. That's completely fine. We will understand. Also the dress code that I mentioned before. Normally we dress down for work and we dress up to go out in the evening. So it's a little bit opposite what other people do. A little bit about the labor market. In October, the unemployment rate was just 2.6%, so less than 70,000 unemployed people. So with 1/3 of them being Polish, you see that really there are quite few unemployed in Norway. The lowest unemployment rate is in the oil and gas district of Stavanger, or Rogaland, where the region is called, just 1.9%. And the highest you find in Oslo and in the very northern part of Norway. In October, there were just over 14,000 vacancies to be found on our national portal, and many of these ones are for engineers. And then, like in Portugal, there are a lot of vacancies that will never be posted, but it is possible to find them if, for example, you contact the company directly before they actually place the vacancy on their portal. We need people within most fields in Norway, especially engineering, but we also need people in the health sector. There's a huge demand for nurses and pharmacists, for example. We also have a surplus. What we have a surplus of is economists and people within marketing, administration, also architects, office staff in general, and unskilled workers. However, it is possible to find a job being an unskilled, and it has to do with the fact that many of the unskilled workers in Norway are very picky when it comes to jobs, and many turn down jobs because they're not interested. And this could be they don't like to work in the afternoon, they don't want to work in the weekends, for example. So some sectors, some in the service industry have problems in recruiting people, also unskilled people. We also have a lack of preschool teachers, a huge lack actually of preschool teachers. We also need clinical psychologists. Of course, this requires Norwegian skills, but I have actually recruited 3 clinical psychologists to Norway with very good results. One of these psychologists, he actually started to treat all patients in Norwegian after 6 months, which is rather impressive. We also need bus drivers, hairdressers, and of course cooks and waiters. There's a huge demand for that. Also long-distance lorry drivers. Here are some companies that need engineers, but of course the list could be very, very long, but these are just some of them. Some of these companies also offer trainee and graduate programs. So it could be a good idea for you to go in and check the websites. Normally, you apply the year that you graduate. So if you graduate this year, you can apply for some of these vacancies. I think my presentation will be available on the website of the Ordem later on, so you can download it. I would also like you to check this NOV project. NOV is a business cluster. It's short for Norwegian Oil and Drilling Engineering. It's a business cluster in the southern part of Norway, consisting of 57 companies, some bigger, some smaller. But one of them is National Oiwell, which is a rather big company as well, in the NOV project. So you could go in there and check this out. Well, the list of most needed engineer is long, but to make it short, what we need the most is mechanical engineer by far, but also structural engineers and engineers within electricity, electro-automation, instrumentation. Yeah. We don't have demand, unfortunately, for environmental engineers. But there is a demand for people skilled in wastewater treatment. However, this is normally in the municipal area, in the technical departments in the municipality, and the working language there is Norwegian. So you have to know about laws and regulations, and it's also quite a bit of writing. So that's why you need to know Norwegian in order to get these jobs. But there is a huge lack, actually, within this field. We also have less demand for chemical engineers. Yeah, I will talk more in detail about this field later in the next presentation. Working conditions in Norway should be interesting for you. Of course, you are entitled to a written contract. You will see that the work contract is, you will feel that something is lacking, I think, because there's not a lot of information on it. It's not a lot of stamps. Normally, the main thing is your name, the time you start, your salary, that's it. They don't have to write about the conditions because they have to comply with the Working Environment Act anyway, so they don't need to repeat it in the contract. By the way, the Working Environment Act is also possible to find in English, so you can read it in English. It's normal in Norway to have a 6 months trial period, and you will not receive a new contract after the 6 months. It's the same contract. Normally, you will have a talk with your managers, how things are going. Within the trial period, you just have a 2 weeks resignation period if you decide to resign. Otherwise, the normal thing is to have 3 months. Salary normally is paid out once a month. In certain industries, it could be twice a month, but once a month is the more normal one. And the employer, like here, will draw the taxes straight from your salary. Normal working hours in Norway is 37.5 hours per week. If you work shift, it will be 35.5 hours per week. There is a maximum of 40 hours per week. And keep in mind, when you receive a contract in Norway with a salary, the salary is for 37.5 hours per week. If you work extra, every minute is paid overtime or extra. And normally you can choose whether you want to have it paid out in money or if you want to have it in holiday time, or maybe a combination of the two could also be okay. But it's not allowed to work more than 40 hours per week constantly. Of course, if you are working on projects, it is allowed to work more than 40 hours per week for a period. But generally, it should be less than 40 hours per week. You are entitled to 25 working days of holidays per year. This is normally the summer holidays. There will be some extra days of holidays during Christmas and Easter, of course. You have 30 days of working days of holidays for those over the age of 60. I know that in Portugal you have not this what we call holiday pay. But in the month of June, we normally don't receive a normal salary, but we receive a holiday pay. And this amounts to 12.2% of the gross income you had the previous calendar year. And you don't tax from this money, so it's quite a lot of money. Also, in Christmas, you just pay half taxes. So you also receive a little bit extra money in Christmas time. So if you start to work in Norway in the month of January, you will not be entitled to holiday pay in June. But you will not either be entitled to have paid holidays in June. You will be entitled to have holidays, but not paid. But if you work a little bit extra, you could use those days during the summer, for example, instead of having them paid out in money. I made a distinction here between according to the law, the holiday pay is 10.2%, but for trade union members is 12%. So most people in Norway belong to a trade union, and I absolutely recommend you to become a member of a trade union. We don't have an Ordem like here in Portugal. You don't have to be a member of an order, but you could choose to be a member of a trade union, which is also a kind of association. So the trade union for engineers is called NITO. So it's nito.no. So besides helping with legal things and legal issues, they actually also help with job search. And they could give you a lot of advice as regard to your career potentials. They also offer courses. They have insurance and banking advantages. So and they also have courses and newsletters and magazines. So it's a good idea to be a member of this NITO if you join work in Norway. Taxes. The taxes in Norway are actually lower than in Portugal. So the average income tax in Norway is 28%. 24.5% is put in brackets because this applies for the very, very northern part of Norway. And this is to encourage people also to live in the north. Also, they receive more child benefit than the general people in the south of Norway. And then you have the national insurance contribution, which is 7.8%. You do not need an extra insurance. The public insurance is more than good enough, for sure. Most people, if you add them together, it will be like 36%, but most people, they don't pay 36%. The average population pays around 30 to 33%. It really depends because in Norway we have an extremely high divorce rate. The divorce rate is actually nearly 50%, it's 47%. So there is a lot of single people, there's a lot of single parents. So for example, single parents, they tax less than married couple, for example, with children, or single people without children. So taxes could actually vary a lot depending on your situation. Also, if you have children in the kindergarten, this can be reduced on your taxes, the expenses. Also, if you belong to a trade union, part of these expenses can also be deducted on your taxes. Also, if you have to drive more than 6 kilometers to your work, part of these expenses can be deducted. And also, if you have some kind of sickness or disease making you have special medication or diet, this could also be deducted on your taxes. So it's actually quite much you can deduct on the taxes. For EU citizens, we actually introduced a special kind of deduction called the standard deduction. And this is introduced because most Norwegian people, they own their own house or apartment. And we can deduct 28% of the mortgage, of the interests, we can deduct it on the taxes. And since most EU citizens don't buy a house straight away, they have introduced a standard deduction so that you can deduct 10% of your salary or a maximum of 40,000 Norwegian kroner the 2 first years that you are working in Norway. So this will also considerably reduce your taxes. If you decide to buy a house before the 2 years, you can actually choose if you want to have the interest of the house or if you want to have the standard deduction. The tax return form will be submitted in April every year. And in Norway, quite many people, they like to pay extra taxes. And this is because, it sounds strange, but this is because this is a good way of saving money. because if you are paying too much taxes, this will be returned to you in the month of June, which is the great month with the holiday pay and everything, with interests. And the interest you receive on this money is much higher than in the bank. So that's why it's a better option to pay more taxes, but to receive more money back in June. What do you get for the 7.8% you pay in national insurance? Well, you get sickness benefit, and you are covered 100% from day one. This is to say that you need to have worked 4 weeks in Norway before you can be entitled to sickness benefit. So don't come in December and break your leg the very first day. At least wait 4 weeks, or preferably not at all. The second year, if you still are on sickness leave, you will receive 66% of your salary. You will also be entitled to unemployment benefit if you have worked sufficiently enough in Norway. Normally, the unemployment benefit is calculated from the previous calendar year. But the period you have been working in Portugal could also be added to this period. And unemployment benefit accumulates to 63% of the pay, the income you had. And you could receive it for a maximum of 2 years. Also, child benefits. You can stay home with your child for 12 months, for a whole year, with 80% of pay. Or you could decide to stay home for 10 months with 100% pay. And then there is a paternity leave reserved for the father with full pay for 14 weeks. So if the father doesn't take this leave, well, they will lose the right. The mother of the child cannot take over this part. I think it's a great arrangement, first of all, because it helps women not to have so much discrimination at work. So if you are young, female, and the employer might think that, oh, you will soon have children and stay home on maternity leave, it might very well turn out that the young man they employ will stay home with the child instead. It's also quite popular in Norway to split the leave in between the parents. So, for example, they stay 6 months home each. That's also an option. It's just the 6 first weeks that it's reserved for the mother, but after that, the father could also be staying at home. You will also be entitled to old age pension. So what I suggest is that you work in Norway and you retire in Portugal with a Norwegian pension. Then you will have a good life. The retirement age in Norway is 67 years. The good thing is that when you work in Norway, you are accumulating rights that you can bring with you to other European Union countries. We prefer, of course, that you actually stay in Norway and continue to accumulating the rights in Norway. All kinds of companies are required to have a special insurance for their workers. So if you should have an accident at work, you will be covered by the company insurance. But if you should also be unlucky to have a disease or have an accident so you cannot work anymore, you will also be entitled to disability benefit. And the disability benefit is actually quite high, so you can easily live off that benefit. You will also enjoy free hospital treatments. It could be certain services like an X-ray that you pay a small part, but it's really not a lot. And it's also free dental treatments for those under the age of 18. For those over the age of 18, you should go to the dentist in Portugal because it's extremely expensive. There is also free of charge to go to schools in Norway. This also applies to the universities. Private schools, you would have to pay a fee, but it's not so high. But most people would go to a normal public school. And if you move to Norway with children, I do recommend that you choose a public school because your children will be better integrated in the environment. And they will go to school with children in the same neighborhood. If you choose to bring your children to Norway and they start in a Norwegian school, they will be entitled to have a Portuguese-speaking assistant the first period, and that is also free of charge. If you have a child in Norway, if it's born in Norway, you don't have to apply for child benefit. This will generate automatically, and you will receive it the month after the child is born. if you come to Norway and start to work and you have children before, you can apply to have child benefits from Norway. The child benefits you could have from the child the month after the child is born until the child is 18. And it amounts to about 120 euros per month. You could claim this money even though your child is still in Portugal, as long as one of the partners are working in Norway. What you need is a birth certificate. There is also a lot of single parent benefits, which also Portuguese would be entitled to if they are a single parent in Norway. And that could be, for example, they could pay part of the childcare expenses, the kindergarten. They could also, if your qualifications do not match the labor market, they could also qualify you by paying household costs while you are studying, for example. So it's quite many good benefits for single parents. We also have a cash benefit, which was introduced by a former government, and that was to encourage people to stay home with their children for a longer period. So they just changed it a little bit, because before you could claim it until the child was 3. Now it is until the child is 2, but the amount is higher. So from 13 months to 18 months, if the child is not attending kindergarten, you could claim around 617 euros per month per child. After that, from 19 months to 23 months, you could claim around 408 euros per month per child. Nobody is going to come and give you these rights, so you need to apply for them, and you apply for them at the NOV office, on your local NOV office. A little bit about costs. Norway is a very high-cost country, and it's an expensive country to be a tourist in. But to actually live in Norway is not that expensive. Food, in general, is not so expensive, neither is clothes. Of course, if you go to a grocery store and you look at things, you will be a little bit shocked because you see the prices are a lot higher than in Portugal. But of course, the salaries are also higher. Alcohol and cigarettes are extremely expensive. So if there are any smokers here and you consider to stop smoking, Norway would be an excellent choice. You will stop smoking altogether, for sure. Extra taxes is put on tobacco and is also put on alcohol in order to discourage people from drinking and smoking. If you go to a bar and you ask for a beer, it will cost around 8.50 euros, which is quite a lot. But if you go to buy it in the grocery store, it will be around 2.50, so then it's not too bad. A glass of wine, 10 euros. So what I'm trying to say is really never invite many friends and family to a restaurant to eat. You will regret it. It's much better to invite them to your house and prepare a nice meal, Portuguese meal at home. Also, cars are very expensive. I thought it was extremely expensive in Norway until I heard the prices here in Portugal. So I realized you are used to expensive cars. Petrol is also expensive, even though we produce oil, but extra taxes is put on the petrol in order, again, to discourage people from driving and use a bus or train instead. But we still drive. What do you get for your wages? I know that here in Portugal, most of your wages goes into housing. But in Norway, we just use, on average, about 27% of our income in housing. And we just use 18% in food. Of course, maybe this is also because we don't spend so much money in food as you do here in Portugal. So you will probably spend a little bit more, but still there will be plenty to go of the money left. Yes, I also have a list so you can compare. A typical thing to compare nowadays is a Big Mac menu. And as you see in Norway, this amounts to around 11 euros, which is quite much more expensive than in Portugal. As you see, salmon, 10 euros 50 per kilo, not so bad, but whereas beef will cost you 27.80 per kilo on average. So that's quite much more expensive. you will see foodstuffs imported from outside the European Union will be cheaper in Norway than in Portugal. For example, rice or sugar. It will be cheaper in Norway than in Portugal. So normally Norwegian people, we go to Sweden to buy alcohol, cigarettes, meat, cheese, and they come to Norway to buy sugar and rice. As you see, a packet of cigarettes is around 11 euros. So quite expensive. Accommodation. Most people in Norway, they will own their own house. Around 90% of couples living together own their own house. And around 67% of single people or young people also will own their own house and an apartment. The rent for a house depends really on the location and if it's in a town. In Oslo, Stavanger and Bergen, it's really expensive. And you could double the average. So to have an ordinary average rent for a house outside these towns are around 750 euros per month. And included in that is garbage removal and water. You just pay electricity apart. And in Norway, most of the houses are singular houses, it's not apartments. And very often people build their house in 3 stories and they will rent out the ground floor. So a price for around 740 euros, that would be a house around 80 to 90 square meters with 2 to 3 bedrooms. So it's quite okay size. You can also easily buy your own house for around between 2 and 3.5 million Norwegian kroner. That would be a house with a garden and everything. So for up to 430,000 euros, you get a very nice house. So I know that this is not so expensive as it could be, for example, in Lisbon. You could easily also buy much cheaper houses than this if, for example, you buy an older house and maybe repair it as a project. That's also possible to do. Of course, if you choose to have a house by the seaside, it will cost more, just like here. These are typical houses in Norway, and most of them are made of wood, wooden houses. The picture up on the top right hand side, it's actually from a town center in Norway, from a town in the south of Norway called Grimstad. So even in a town, you will see wooden houses. Of course, you go to Bergen, to Oslo, you will also see nice brick buildings as well. But most of it is still wooden buildings. There is a web page called finn.no. It's a very useful page. Here you can find accommodation. You can find used cars. You can find a new girlfriend or boyfriend. So you can find many things on this web page. So it's a good idea to check this out. All the other links are also links to housing. This is how finn.no looks like. And up to the right, you see jobb. This means vacancies. Here you can also find vacancies. In my opinion, most of the vacancies there are from recruitment agencies. But it could also be normal companies also putting their vacancies there. The heart is, by the way, to find a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Salaries. Salaries in Norway are among the highest in Europe. According to the statistics, the average monthly salary is around 4,530 euros. Of course, the statistics always lie a little bit, because some people really have very, very high salaries, so this rises the average considerably. But the 10% with the best paid jobs, they earn around 8,840 euros per month. And the 10% with the lowest paid jobs earn around 2,500 euros per month. You could say that a Portuguese nurse is paid twice as much in Norway as in Portugal. A bus driver earns 3 times as much in Norway as in Portugal. A cleaner will earn 5 times as much in Norway as in Portugal. So a cleaner would certainly have between 15 to 17 euros per hour, which is considerably more than here in Portugal. I will talk a little bit more about the salaries for engineers on my next presentation. We do not have minimum salaries in Norway. Everything is by collective agreement with the trade unions and the employers' federations. Your salaries you have to negotiate yourself. Or if you belong to a trade union, you are entitled to the standard salary. You could use NOV, nov.no, but this is available in Norwegian only. We also have some vacancies posted in English on NOV. I will also show you this in the next presentation. Norway is not a member of the European Union, but we are a member of the European Economic Area, which gives Norwegian people the same rights in the European Union as European Union citizens have in Norway. So Portuguese citizens do not need a work permit in Norway, you only need a resident permit, and this you will get once you get a job. You can come to Norway and be a job seeker for up to 6 months. 3 months first without having to register anywhere, or if you have been in Norway after 3 months, you need to register with the police as a job seeker, so you can be there in total 6 months. Or you could have a trip to Sweden or Denmark and back again, and you can stay an additional 3 months. It's also an option. When you have received a job contract, it's quite simple. You just have to self-registrate with the immigration authorities, which is called UDI in Norway, and you will receive a registration document which will be valid as long as you are working in Norway. When you have lived and worked in Norway for 5 years or more, you can receive a permanent residence. This is a summer picture taken from Norway. It's true, actually, but this is in the glacier area with the glaciers in Norway. What you need to contact is the police, of course the tax office, in order to receive a tax deduction card. You need to open a bank account, but you cannot open a bank account before you have got your Norwegian ID number. And you only need one ID number. That also works as a national insurance number. And then contact NOV. You don't have to register with NOV, but you should go there to see what is your rights and entitlements. And if you have to claim, for example, child benefit, you can go to the NOV office. You can also find your family doctor in the NOV office, a list of family doctors. Some websites of interest. For example, toll.no, this has to do with the customs, what you can bring and what you cannot bring to Norway. In general, what you should know is that since cars are expensive in Norway, many try to make business out of this. So many Norwegian people used to go to Germany, buy cars and sell them a lot more expensive, sell them for a lot of money in Norway. So in order to stop this activity, the authorities put on tax on foreign cars coming to Norway. So that's why, I mean, if you bring your Portuguese car to Norway, you might expect to pay taxes on it. And if it is a good car, a powerful car, an expensive car, don't bring it, please. Sell it and buy a second-hand car in Norway first, and then later you can buy a new one, because it's going to be too expensive. For those who have maybe spouses in the health sector, they will need to ask for an authorization. This can be done through sac.no. Normally it takes 3-4 months to get this authorization. NITO is the trade union organization that I mentioned. I would recommend you to go and have a look at it. Like you see, they give you legal assistance, and they also support you during the job search. This is a very good benefit you have if you belong to this union. The manager of this trade union loves Portugal. He has been working 2-3 years in Portugal and speaks Portuguese, actually. More pictures to tempt you to come to Norway, and of course we have to have the bacalhau. I made the fish a little bit bigger than it is, but again, to tempt you to come. This is the northern part of Norway, and this is the area where you find the fisheries. And more people here eat bacalhau than in the south of Norway. Here you have some of the nature. We have the northern lights, which is really, really beautiful. And it's very common to see above the Arctic Circle during winter time. Some winter pictures, even though I hate snow myself, especially when it's snowing in the night and you have to get up early in the morning to take away the snow before going to work. You will not be happy with the snow either, I promise you. But to enjoy the weekends with snow is nice. Well, there will be more questions afterwards. I think I'm a bit over the time, so I think it's going to be a short break now. Now I will talk a little bit about job seeking in Norway. Each country have their speciality and special way of applying for jobs. And I have received a lot of CVs from Portuguese engineers. And some of you might not know how to make your CV attractive to Norwegian employers. So this I'm going to talk a little bit more about. I will skip the thing about Norway being a member of the European Economic Area because you know by now, and also about the work permits. Most of you, when you think about Norway and engineers, you are thinking about the oil and gas industry. Of course, we do also have other kind of industry than the oil and gas. The reason why we promote oil and gas the most is because in this industry, the need is more urgent. And secondly, the working language is English. That's why it's much easier to find a job for Portuguese engineer in this area. Norway has been producing oil and gas for the last 40 years. And actually, we produce just below 2 million barrels of oil every day on average. So it's quite a lot. Many Portuguese, when they hear oil and gas, they are thinking about working on an oil rig. Well, most of the jobs are not on an oil rig, but it's actually onshore doing engineering. Most of the people that work on oil rigs are operators of equipment, drilling equipment. It could be hairdressers and cooks and nurses. Not so many engineers. Of course, we do have service engineers, making sure that the equipment is good and okay and doing maintenance work. So most of the engineers in Norway are needed by the suppliers to the oil and gas industry, making tools and equipment. Info about the oil and gas industry can be found on offshore.no. I really recommend you to check out these web page on a regular basis because here you can find out which companies are receiving which kind of contracts. If you see there is a company receiving a big contract, you know they will start to recruit. And maybe you could start to apply in beforehand. The oilcarriers.com, you can find jobs within the oil and gas industry in general, but not just in Norway, but worldwide. Petro.no, this is only available in Norwegian, but you might be able to Google Translate it. I don't normally promote Google Translator, but just now I do, just to have an idea about news happening in Norway in the oil and gas industry. We also do have a need in the public sector, especially in the technical departments in the municipalities, absolutely a huge need for engineers. However, the working language there is Norwegian. That's why it's a little bit hard for you to find it just with English skills. Also, the public authorities for roads in Norway also need a lot of people in construction. But also those jobs are hard to get because you need to speak Norwegian. However, one of the regional offices, they have asked me to forward CVs to them. And I have forwarded some CVs from Portugal's civil engineers. And they will be interviewing some. So I'm looking for an opening there. Because if they take some, they will be a reference for the other regional offices. So hopefully we will get in more engineers in this sector as well. The most needed engineers is by far mechanical engineers. It is also structural engineers. So if you are civil engineers, and if you are civil engineers in structures, don't present yourself as civil engineers. Call yourselves structural engineers, because this will catch the attention of the Norwegian employer much more. If you are more in the construction side, it could be more difficult to find a job in the offshore-related sector. There's also a need for electro-automation instrumentation engineers, especially those with experience in PLC programming and HMI knowledge. Also mechatronic engineers, of course. If any of you have experience in hydraulics, you will be of extreme interest for many Norwegian employers. But I'm not talking about wastewater hydraulics. It's more hydraulics related to the oil and gas industry. Also, if you have experience from valves and pumps and drilling equipment, subsea, offshore, of course, not many Portuguese have subsea experience. And I'm happy to see, because I see quite many female here today. I hope you are engineers and not just following your partner here. And I'm saying this because in Norway we do practice reverse discrimination. We really want more female engineers. Unfortunately, most of the female engineers, they tend to study environmental engineering, chemical engineering. If you are a mechanic female engineer, absolutely all companies in Norway will want you. So you will be guaranteed a job. So for those of you working in the universities and university colleges, please encourage the females to apply for mechanical engineering or structural engineering. I just want to give an example. 2 years ago, we had a fair in Aveiro, and we had 5 Norwegian companies participating. Some of them were Origo Solutions companies, so quite big ones. And there was a young female engineer, just quite recently graduated, just 6 months of experience. And she was accompanying her boyfriend, a mechanical engineer, hoping that he would get a job. But all the 5 companies wanted her. And one of the companies didn't dare to let her go, so they offered her a contract on the stand. So she was walking out with a contract. So she was in shock all the time. She was not expecting this to happen. So this is how much we really, really want female engineers. We want to have a balanced environment, working environment. So we want to have a mix between males and females, senior and junior engineers. We also practice reverse discrimination in other fields. For example, male nurses are preferred before female nurses. Female car mechanics are preferred before male car mechanics. So it's the same. I will probably also be asked questions about the age. Age is not an issue in Norway at all. You have the perfect engineer in general for a company is a person, an engineer with between 2 and 5 years of experience. You have some experience, but not so much that it will be difficult to mold you in the company. But the companies also have senior engineer positions. And then they prefer to have somebody with a lot of experience. I was with FMC Technology a couple of years ago, quite big company in Norway. They recruited an engineer here from Portugal with 63 years. So the age is not an issue in Norway at all. Okay. Some of the companies needing engineers. I just would like you to know that the engineering students in Norway, they have a job long before they finish their studies. So we cannot fill up the graduate programs in Norway. That's why we have quite few. But some of the bigger companies like Aker, FMC, Statoil, our national oil and gas company, they do have graduate programs. And you stand a very good chance in getting into these programs if you apply, because there are few applications from Norway. The graduate programs are paid extremely well. It's not that it's not paid or with a very low salary. Most of them will have salaries around 50,000 euros per year. And the graduate programs, they could last from 1.5 years up to 4 years. And you could be sure that you are guaranteed a job in that company when you finish this program. Most of the internship, most of the graduate programs, you have to apply for them now in the autumn, normally before December, the end of December. Some could also have in January. Normally, you should have graduated this year in order to apply to start one of these programs the next year. Aker have openings now for their graduate programs. FMC have very interested in graduate programs. Statoil have, for example, summer internships for sure, and they also have graduate programs. National Oiwell Varco have some, but they don't have the focus on their graduate program. And all the other ones I mentioned are major companies in Norway recruiting engineers. But it's very important not to forget the smaller companies, because we have many small companies also wanting to recruit engineers. But this list would be extremely long, but I will show you how you can search for some of these companies and then contact them on your own. As regard to the salaries for engineers, the engineers are paid quite well in Norway. So the average salary for engineers in the private sector is around 75,000 euros per year before taxes. Normal salaries for engineers in industry outside the offshore industry is ranging between 53,000 to 68,000 euros per year. So it's a little bit less paid than with the suppliers to the oil and gas industry. Salaries in the offshore-related industry will range between 62,000 to 111,000 euros per year. It depends on your background and qualifications. Senior engineers are normally paid very well. The same are service engineers, because they do a lot of traveling and receive a lot of allowances. In order to be a service engineer, you normally have to have worked in the company for a couple of years, so that you know the company, you know the products, and you know the customers well. Job seeking. Of course, you have to make a CV in English. That is never a problem with Portuguese engineers. I don't think I have received many CVs in Portuguese. I do receive some, but you would be amazed from many of the other countries. I am receiving it in Italian. I would say that 70% of the CVs I receive from Italy are in Italian. And for me, that's a little bit strange. You could use the Europass. It's quite common now in Norway, but you could also use or use another format. The main thing is that you write in English. Never Google Translate and write it in English. No, in Norwegian, sorry. Because most probably it will seem very comic, the way you write, and you will not be chosen, okay? You could check out the yellow pages in order to find the companies. I will show some of this, how you do that later. And then you could check out the company's website and check out the vacancies they have. And you could even contact them in beforehand before they get the vacancies there. And of course, you should use your personal network. If you do know somebody that already went to Norway to work for a company, you should use their network and maybe get a job within the same company. Many companies like that they have somebody that can be a reference for a new engineer. So I think this could be a good idea. It's quite common in Norway to check references. So you should make sure that you have 2 or 3 references, either from a current employer or from a previous employer. And if you are recently graduated, it could also be a professor. A bit about the CVs. You could use a photo. I noticed that the employers like it. But most Norwegian people, they don't use a photo. But of course, when the companies are receiving many CVs, it's easier to distinguish people if there is a photo. But just make sure that it's a formal photo and not a photo from a day on the beach. This is neither a big problem with the Portuguese, but I did receive a CV from a Romanian engineer where he attached a photo from New Year's Eve 2012. And it's not the one employers want to see, for sure. The good thing about the Europass format is that it's easy for the employers to compare qualification with the other candidates. So this is the good thing about the Europass. Also the fact that it forces you to write a little bit about the company you have been working with. Because remember that it might be a big company in Portugal, but in Norway, the employers might not have heard about this company. So you should make a brief description what kind of company you have been working in, and also make some descriptions as to what kind of tasks you have been doing. The employers, they will spend 2-3 seconds looking at your CV, and then they will decide, should I keep on reading or not? So that's why you have to have interesting details to begin with. And I really, really recommend you, under the personal details, to write some key skills. So if you are a civil engineer, write you are a structural engineer, and then focus on your technical skills. Because in Norway, it's a high-cost country. We have little production in Norway. So we do the pure engineering, the design, the analysis, simulations, calculations. This we do in Norway. And then we have production very often in East Asian countries. So when the employer receives a CV, he will automatically look technical skills. So if you can make sure to put it quite on the top of the CV, this looks much better. And if you would like to have your CV sticking out a little bit, maybe not choose the Europass, but make your own format. Maybe you use the logo of the company you worked in, just so they can say, oh, this company is this company. Then it's a little bit different. So I have noticed, I notice myself, because I'm receiving so many CVs, and every time I receive a CV a little bit different, but highlighting on technical skills, I immediately see that, oh, this could be a very good candidate. We don't have manufacturing industry in Norway. So if you have been working in the manufacturing industry, don't put manufacturing manager. They will not keep on reading. Maybe you should choose process manager. It's a better word, okay? And very often we are not so fond of manager either, because we are more focused on the technical parts. So if you have 10 years of experience as a manager, project manager, they tend also to put your CV aside, because they are looking for technical people. It could very well be that you work as a project manager, but they will choose you to be that after a couple of years of work in the company, and they still want to know your technical skills. So that's why you should highlight this as much as possible. So if you are a mechanical engineering design, you should write mechanical design using, for example, Autodesk Inventor. Then they will see that you don't just have knowledge of Inventor, you actually have working knowledge of Inventor. So this is good information for the companies. And when we are talking about technical things, Autodesk Inventor is one of the more used IT tools in design in Norway. This is what most of the companies ask for. But they know if you know SolidWorks, it's not difficult to learn Inventor. But if you have the chance to put Inventor on your CV, it will be much more attractive again for the Norwegian companies. Of course, you should write your personal details. Don't forget to put the country code in front of your telephone number. This is quite easy to forget. You should also write about your marital status. This is because since most of the vacancies in Norway are permanent, they are looking to see, is this a family person that will bring all his family to Norway? They are not so interested in hiring people for 6 months or 1 year. Because they will use a lot of time and money in training people. So they want to make sure that you actually settle there for a while. So that's why it's important whether you will bring your family or whether you are single and they need to find you a girlfriend or boyfriend. Then you should also present your more recent education and your more recent work experience first. This is the more relevant one. Don't start with the oldest, okay? Well, the length of the CV, it should not be too long, not 10 pages, because they don't bother to read 10 pages. But it could be 2 and 3 pages, that's fine. because it is important that it's so detailed that they really understand what your experience is all about, okay? So make sure about that. Don't make it too short. Don't write structural engineer, that's it. Because they want to know what kind of structures, concrete, steel, big structures, smaller structures. These are the things, information they want to know. So make sure to make it a bit detailed. And again, focus on your technical skills in all the parts of your CV, and also mention which level you know the different kind of IT tools, the technical skills. Then we have the application or the cover letter. This should not be your life story, obviously. It should be rather short, maybe around 1 page. And it should be not a general application so that they can see this is an application you would send to any company. They want to know that you want to work in their company in specific. So you should adapt your qualifications to the requirements in the vacancy. When you do that, they see that, okay, you really made this application specially for this company. You should also write a little bit, why are you applying? Don't please mention the crisis in Portugal, because it seems like you are escaping. Maybe you are, but don't mention it, okay? You should say that you want to go to Norway because you want to gain international experience in an industry where you cannot get the experience in Portugal. Okay, so you should focus on that. Also, you should mention that you are looking to settle for a while, that this is not a short-term affair. Also very important to mention. And again, focus more, even though you have been doing project management and a manager, try if you can focus more on the technical part still. Maybe instead of putting manager, maybe you could put responsible instead. Because if you have like 10 years of management experience, they will say that, oh, he's not going to want to work like a technical engineer, you know, and they will put your CV aside again. So that's why technical skills, focus on this. Also remember to apply before the last day of application. Maybe apply 2-3 days before the last day, because it seems a little bit like last minute, you know, to send the application. And then I also recommend you to follow your application up. Maybe contact the company beforehand, ask questions about the vacancy, show interest. And then maybe 5-6 days, 1 week after the deadline of application, you could contact them again. And you could say, okay, you sent a CV, an application this and that day, and you want to know about the process. This shows interest. This shows that you are interested in their company, and they will remember your name when they go through the CVs and applications. And it's a good idea that you keep an overview of which company you apply to. If you actually phone them, write down the name of the person you spoke with and the date, because then you can refer to this. Then they will see you are systematic, you have control. So this I also recommend you to do. Show interest, main thing. Your application and CV is going to take you to the main goal, which is to have a job interview. If you are in Portugal and the employer is in Norway, not here to recruit, they will probably contact you by email or phone first, maybe arrange a Skype interview with you, and then they will invite you to come to Norway. And the employer should pay for travel costs and accommodation when you go to Norway. Sometimes they just order the ticket for you. Other times they will ask you to buy it and then send the expenses, so they will reimburse you. In this case, I still think you could insist that you prefer that they send you the ticket, so you don't have to prepay it. It's possible to say. Very often, smaller companies could come with this suggestion. Bigger companies, they will just send you the ticket. When you go to the interview, like I explained previously, we are dressed not very formal. So dress casual. You don't have to wear a suit and tie. Of course, if you are a senior engineer going for an interview with Statoil, yes, maybe come in a suit and tie. But if you are going for an interview for a normal technical engineer position, dress casual, please. It's also quite common. Don't be shocked when you come to the interview and you see there are 3, 4, maybe even 5 people present in the interview. Most probably it will be the department manager, it will be somebody from the human resource, and then there could be up to 2, 3 people from the trade unions in the company. And the trade union representatives are present just to see that all the questions, everything goes according to regulations. For example, it's not allowed to ask about your religious background or political background. So they are just making sure that everything is correct. Some of these trade union representatives are also encouraged to ask questions, but they might not say anything. They just are sitting there like observers. So don't be nervous because there are many people present. Another thing which is important in Norway is punctuality. You will see to work as an engineer in Norway is completely different than working as an engineer in Portugal, because you are given quite a lot of freedom in your work. What is important is to meet the deadlines. You are encouraged to come forward with your own ideas of how things should be done, and they welcome that. But meet the deadlines. And this also applies for when you go to the interview. Make sure that you are there 10, 15 minutes in beforehand. Very, very important. And of course, this is quite obvious. I hardly have to say this, but don't speak bad about your previous employers. And again, don't mention the crisis in Portugal. Of course, if the employer brings it up, you can talk about it, but try not to make a big issue out of it. Because the focus should be that you go to Norway because you want to have this international experience, and you want to have the experience that this particular company can give you. So that's why the focus should be on that. Be prepared. Read the company's homepage really very well, and make sure to prepare several questions for the representatives for the company afterwards. And it shouldn't be obvious questions that you could find on their homepage, but a little bit, you know, questions. Normally they will invite you to come with the questions in the end of the interview. In Norway, normally we have to sell ourselves a little bit. The problem you have, Portuguese people have, you are too modest, you are too shy. You don't like to brag about yourself. But the typical question you could be asked is, okay, we have 5 people for an interview. Why should we choose you rather than the 4 others? This is a typical thing they could ask. And most of the Portuguese engineers will be shocked to get this question, and they don't know what to answer. But then you should be confident. You should say, well, I don't know about the other 4 candidates, but I'm confident about my skills. And I know what you could get if you choose me. So this could be a good option to answer, okay? So be confident. Another thing is they might ask you is, what kind of salary do you expect? And again, it will be really hard for you when you had never worked in Norway to come with a suggestion. So you should then simply answer that you expect to be paid the same as a Norwegian engineer with similar experience and qualifications. This is the best thing. If you receive a job offer, you could, for example, also say that, okay, I accept, but I would like to have the right to renegotiate my salary after the trial period, after the 6 months. Because after these 6 months, you will be in a better position to actually negotiate your salary. Because you will have proven yourself. They know more or less what they get, and you will maybe have asked some of your colleagues what they earn. So you have an idea what you should also earn, okay? But you have to sort of be in discussion with the employer about the salaries yourself, okay? This doesn't normally come in the vacancy description. So never bring up the issue of salary in the interview. Let the employer bring it up. Normally, they will bring it up. Okay? Some could be, you need to promote yourself, like I explained before, but don't be too talkative. Let the employer have a chance to ask the questions. This is really important. If you feel you are talking too much or that you are nervous, say that. Say, I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. It's much better than you say that, rather than the employer having the wrong impression. But try to stick to answering the questions. That is the best thing you could do. And towards the end, if there are things you really would like to explain about your qualifications, okay, then come forward with this information then. Some employers could use 2 and 3 hours for an interview. Others do more speed interviews, maybe half an hour. Very often recruitment agencies and bigger companies very skilled in making interviews, they could do more speed interviews to have an idea, more or less, about your skills. Especially when we bring companies to Portugal for fairs, it's very often a speed interview, the first meeting and first interview you will have. And then you will have a second interview after that, most probably in Norway. Again, where to find the jobs. I will show you how to navigate on our national vacancy portal, nov.no, and how also to find the vacancies we have in English. Most of them are for engineers, and these pages are updated several times per day. Again, you can go into fin.no and find vacancies. Most of them are also in, most of them are actually also in English. The portal indeed.com also exists in Portuguese. So when you put indeed.com, you get up the Portuguese website. So you have to try to navigate over to the Norwegian one. And then you could use the yellow pages. This is how the yellow pages looks like in Norway. And if you write engineer in Norwegian, you will have several options. And most of these ones you could use. And then you could search. But you will find thousands and thousands of companies. So you will probably need to make a selection. And then you just go into each company's website, check it out, what kind of company is this, and see if they have any vacancies. If they don't have any vacancies, but you see that this is an interesting company, you could still try to contact them, because maybe they do have vacancies, but they didn't put it on their homepage yet. So this is a good approach. You could put engineer, or you could make a search for offshore. Most of the suggestions coming up is good, with the exception of the fourth one from down, which is offshore medical doctors. You shouldn't try that one. But the rest of them, you could try, and you will have many interesting companies coming up. This is the national vacancy portal. You see on the left-hand side, ledige stillinger. This means vacant positions. Or you could also go up to other languages. The layout of this page is going to change in a month or two. But still, if you choose other languages, you choose English. And then you will come to this page, and you see vacancies on nov.no in English on the right-hand side. When you press this one, you will have a search. This one was made last week, and there were 231 vacancies. Most of them for engineers. You will see the title of the vacancy, you will see the place of work, the employer, the last day of application, and when it was registered. And if you double-click on the vacancy, you will find more details about the vacancy. Most of the vacancies for engineers are permanent positions. But you will also find quite many vacancies through recruitment agencies. I know that recruitment agencies have a rusty reputation in Portugal, but in Norway they are good recruitment agencies. And many companies like to use recruitment agencies in the first stage. This is because if you have a permanent vacancy, you cannot make it a limited vacancy. So maybe then they prefer to hire in the services from a recruitment agency, so they can hire an engineer the first 6 months or 1 year just to check the skills. And after that period, they will offer him a permanent job. Many get their jobs in this way. So it could also be a good idea to contact some of the companies, the recruitment companies, recruiting engineers. But if I were you, I would stick to the ones that are specialists in engineers, not necessarily Adecco, for example, that recruit a little bit of engineers, some nurses and some cooks. You know, they are not specialists, the one choosing the candidates. But there are several companies that specialize in engineers. For example, Technogarden Engineering or Engineering Supply. There are several ones that specialize in engineers. If you want to see the Norwegian vacancies, you could also do that. Even though it's written in Norwegian, you could Google translate it and you could go into their webpage and you could check out the vacancy and then apply as well. Then you will go into vacant positions, or ledige stillinger, on the left-hand side. Then again, you could put engineer, in the search field. You could also limit it to a region. We have 19 regions in Norway. Or you could apply for them all. If you apply for them all, normally you will have at least 200 to 500 different vacancies. There are plenty of vacancies for engineers at all times. I also suggest you, because EURES Norway, we are in contact with employers constantly. We would really like to have your CVs as well. So if you send it to eures@nav.no, all the EURES advisors in Norway will have access to your CV, and it will be placed in a CV base that we have created. And then we will forward it to employers when we receive vacancies. You can send it to me as well, but I receive so many requests, and I'm always constantly behind on my email. So if you don't mind waiting for a while before I reply, you could also send it to me. But at least send a copy to eures@nav.no, because then at least it will be sure that it will be accessible to all my EURES colleagues. Okay, now, any questions? The slides will be available on the association's webpage.
Okay.
So you can download it from there.
All right then.
Yeah. Yes?
We said before there are not many jobs for chemical engineers.
Mm-hmm.
You said before that there are not many jobs for chemical engineers. So there's no point in applying or trying.
There are always vacancies, but if you compare with mechanical engineers and structural engineers, it's a huge difference. Of course, if your background is in the wine cork industry, for example, the chances are not so great in Norway. But if you have been working in the oil field in Portugal, your chances is quite great. And maybe instead of being a chemical engineer, maybe you could be a process engineer, which would be more interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
It's more easy to find a job with graduated programs or to the agency or directed to...
I think you should use all options. So if you are able to use graduate programs, you cannot use a graduate program, obviously, if you have 10 years of experience, so you should be recently graduated. But if I were you, I would also contact recruitment agencies, I would contact the companies directly, so I would use all the possibilities. But I also would like to say, be patient when you do the applications, because the process very often takes time. The bigger the company is, the slower the process. So the process could easily be 2 or 3 months. Maybe you are not available to work before 6 months. That's fine, you could still apply, because you will negotiate with the employer when you can start. And very often it's fine if you start after 6 months.
Okay. For instance, in my case, I do not have experience in some areas I would like to work in Norway.
Mm-hmm.
It will be easier to get in a graduate program, or?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because there are so many vacancies. I just spoke with the University College of Bergen. He informed me that there are more than 15,000 vacancies for engineers. So the need is so great. So there is a chance to also have regular, normal vacancy. So I would absolutely also apply for that. What I do recommend is that you don't send general applications. Apply directly to vacancies you are qualified for. Unless you are in contact with a company that you find really interesting and they do not have a vacancy fitting your qualifications, then you could send a general application. Otherwise, not.
I'd like to know if a PhD is overskilled engineer.
Yes. Yes. I could say yes. Even in bigger companies, yes. But again, it depends in which field. We did have the University College of Bergen coming to the European Job Days in Porto just a couple of days ago, and they were looking for PhDs, and they didn't find any. So they are really interested in PhD. Not just University College of Bergen, but most of the universities are looking for that.
And one more question about PhD in chemistry.
The demand is not so great. Most of the demand is for either civil engineers, mechanical, or electrical engineers. Any more questions? Yes?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you say more agencies for employer that you say Technogarden and you say another
engineering
one?
supply.
Suppliers, and they are others that
There
are specialized?
are so many, you wouldn't believe it. Just in Oslo alone, there are more than 200 headhunt companies.
But the ones that are specialized
You
in
could also
engineering.
find them in the yellow pages again. Right. I will write a mail to Sonia here in the autumn and write how you find the agencies, okay?
All right.
So then you can contact the autumn and they will tell you how to do it.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm a civil engineer, and in the past 3 years I've been working in demolition. Is there a demolition market in Norway?
Tricky question. There might be. Again, most of the engineers are needed in the offshore-related market. Demolition, I don't think is a huge demand.
In Portugal, I'm used to work in industry.
In industry. Yeah. In industry. But our industry is not so great. Okay. This is the problem. We are more engineering. But I would think there could be... I would have to check it, actually. So you could contact me, and I will try and check it out for you.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question with respect to the Europass format. You said on one hand that Europass format is recommended because you can compare easily the CVs, but on the other you said that you should be original. So what is your your final statement on Europass format?
Being an employer, of course, a Europass is because it's easier to compare. But when I'm receiving CVs, I automatically get the attention when it's a little bit different. Of course, it should not be written on red paper or anything like this, but some colors, then it automatically attracts my attention.
Okay, like a customized Europass?
Yes, Europass with some colors, maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Another thing. What I don't like about the Europass is it comes desired occupation. If you are not able to put anything there, is good. Or you put mechanical engineer or structural engineer. Don't make it too narrow, okay? And again, not manufacturing engineer.
Hello. And the geologists and or geological engineers will be needed?
Yes, absolutely, we do need that. Our national oil and gas company, Statoil, all the time looks for geologists. Also, the public institution for roads in Norway needs geologists all the time. Like I told you, it's a little bit difficult for them to take in people that just speak English, but it's a matter of time. And since the Conservative government now promised to build a lot of new roads and railways, we will have to recruit from abroad. We have no option.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? No? Okay, then we will have...
We're going to continue this last part of the conference. Por isso, se não se importam, era a última parte. Neste momento é mais focada, tal como o programa define, em algumas empresas e concretamente nesta que a Eli vai apresentar, e depois também na NOV, que vai também aqui a Luísa Martins também focar em português, que mantém o contacto um pouco mais facilitado. So Eli, could you please? Thank you.
There it is. I forgot to mention just before, if you are a recently graduate, don't write, I'm a recently graduate. Write, I'm an engineer. So again, don't be humble. Be focused that you are recently graduate, but you are full of enthusiasm, you are ready to work, you are completely updated on the technical skills. So focus on that. Don't write graduate engineer, please. Okay? Another thing which you could focus on is the fact that you are Portuguese, you speak Portuguese. So many companies in Norway want to get into the Brazilian market, also the Angolan market, and they have failed, mainly because they don't have the language skills and they don't have the skills about the culture. So make a point of the fact that you are Portuguese, you do speak Portuguese, you do understand Spanish, I suppose most of you. You should also mention that as regards to the rest of South America and Angola, Mozambique, East Timor. So make a point of this also in your applications, okay? There are so many companies needing engineers, but there are some companies that have asked me to market their company and their vacancies. But there are many, many more. One of these companies, or it's actually a university college of Bergen, I got to know about them and their needs after I make the presentation. But the University College of Bergen, also the University College of Oslo, are looking to recruit professors, preferably with a PhD, but it could also be with a master degree and with some experience in research and development. They are looking to recruit civil engineers in construction. If you have also wastewater treatments experience with that, this will be of great interest. They're also looking to recruit mechanical engineers and electrical engineers mainly. These vacancies you will find on our national vacancy portal, nov.no, and the vacancies in English. We also have some of these vacancies upstairs on the stand. You will also find it there. First of all, I would like to market Aker Solutions. Aker Solutions is not one company, but is a group of several companies. So they are providers of equipment to the offshore-related industry. It could be everything from winches and cranes to subsea equipment. Aker Solutions is located not only in Norway, but all over the world, and they have 28,000 employees, so you can imagine that this is a very, very big company. They are located in 25 different locations in Norway, 48 different entities, so it's very, very big. Right now, they have 452 vacancies worldwide. 291 of these vacancies are within different engineering disciplines. And in Norwegian locations, they have 152 vacancies, and more than 90 of those are for engineers. Right now, normally in the autumn is not the time where you find more vacancies. It's normally in springtime. From February, March, April, you will normally find quite many more vacancies. Aker Solutions have asked me to promote especially 2 of these vacancies. The detailed vacancy description you will find up in our stand, but it is for mechanical engineers. And it's also for their location in Kristiansand, which is in the very southern part of Norway. But they do have several others also very, very interested vacancies. So I suggest that you go into akersolutions.com, navigate into careers, and then you will find all these vacancies. They also have now, graduate programs that you can apply for. Many Portuguese, they have a great experience with Portuguese. Many Portuguese are already working for Aker or have been hired into Aker by recruitment or consultancy agencies. So they have very good experience with Portuguese. They have their own web recruiter system, so you need to apply online. I also want to promote Kumatek. Kumatek was supposed to be here today to promote their own company and vacancies, but in the end they had to cancel. Kumatek is a consultancy agency. It's located in Grimstad in southern Norway, and they have 57 employees in total. What is interesting here, they have come with me several times to Portugal to recruit engineers, and the majority of their engineers are actually Portuguese, not Norwegian, but actually Portuguese. So they are really happy with their Portuguese engineers. They very often hire out the services of the engineers to, for example, Aker, to National Oiwell, 2 different companies in the oil and gas industry. You do receive a permanent contract with Kumatek, so it's not a project job or anything like that. You are hired permanently. They also have in-house projects that you work on, so it could be a combination of the 2. They don't normally employ recently graduate. You do need at least 2 years of experience in order for them to hire you. This is, of course, because they hire out their services. Right now, they are looking for mechanical engineers, especially in design, with skills in 3D. And it's Inventor, SolidWorks, Pro Engineer, and PDMS in piping design. I also forgot to mention this before, but we also do really need piping engineers. They are also needing structural engineers doing analysis and calculations. And it's the woman on the picture, Ms. Gry, who will perform the Skype interviews with you, and she's quite quick in responding. Whereas many other companies are quite slow in responding, she's very quick in responding. So it will be a Skype interview first, and then it will be an invitation to come to Norway. Another company that has asked me to promote them is the company Norsafe. Norsafe is not an offshore-related company in that sense, but they are making rescue boats and lifeboats. And it's one of the leading actors in this market. The company is located in Arendal, in the southern part of Norway, in the Riviera again. And they have they actually do also have production in Norway. So this is the interesting thing for an engineer. You are doing the project and you could see the end result. But they also have production companies in Greece and in China as well. They are actually the largest free-fall producer of free-fall lifeboats that can take the fall from 47 meters. And they have received several design awards. But what they make the most is normal lifeboats and rescue boats. Their homepage is in English, but their vacancy description, unfortunately, is in Norwegian. So that's why I will just briefly explain what they are looking for. For their boat department, they are looking for mechanical engineers with experience in design using AutoCAD 3D and Inventor. If there are any engineers with experience in composite materials, you will be very wanted. So if you have some experience in that, please mention it. You will also be responsible for doing technical documentation. They're also looking for engineers in their David department. Again, it's design, 3D design, and element analysis. And you will have contact with suppliers and customers all over the world, and also authorities giving approvals. So it also, you need to have really good English skills. You could send your CVs to this link, and as soon as possible, please, because they really need it now. If you have any questions as regard to the vacancies, you could call this contact person. He is the human resource manager. It's a great company. It's not a company that pays the best. If you get a vacancy in NOV or Aker Solution, your salary will be quite much higher, but they pay well. And they are located in a place in Norway where the housing costs is around the average. So you have a very good life with a salary from Norsafe. Palfinger Dreggen, this is in another region than mine, so I have not so much information about it, but it belongs to a group, the Palfinger Group, and the headquarters are located in Switzerland, in Salzburg in Switzerland. In Norway, the marine part are located in Bergen. So they are into cranes and lifting equipment, marine cranes and lifting equipment. They also have some production in Norway, but they also have production in Poland, Korea, and Brazil. I have put 3 vacancies in this group upstairs, so you could also search for them there. They are doing design of these kind of equipment. They also do the servicing of the equipment. They do repairs, and they also do documentation, necessary documentation. At the moment, they are looking to recruit service engineers who can do service on their equipment. And they require at least 2 to 5 years of experience with maintenance of machinery, and preferably marine machinery. They are also looking for a senior electrical engineer and a senior project engineer. Up on the stand, there are more details on these vacancies. This is also a company that wanted to come, but were unable to come. There seems to be several events taking place in Norway right now, and also in Copenhagen. So that's why several companies did not come this time. But normally we bring, for recruitment events, we normally bring at least 15 to 20 companies from Norway. Then we have Origo Solutions. This is a merger between Origo Engineering and Align. So they formed Origo Solutions. This company is located in southern Norway, and they are into solutions within safety, automation, and control. They have a head office in Kristiansand, which is located in the very south of Norway. They have around 90 employees, and they have 3 regional offices, plus 1 office in Copenhagen. They are mainly looking for engineers within, electrical, instrumentation, and automation engineers. Also some in telecom, but not so much telecom as the other part. They have no active vacancies on their portal at the moment, but there will be coming vacancies. So they asked me to promote their company and to promote engineers with experience in PLC programming and HMI knowledge. You could send your CVs to me, and I will forward it to the company. Then I would like to present NOV. NOV is a great company. It's one of the bigger offshore-related companies in Norway, actually. There are many vacancies in NOV Norway as well, but they are focusing on staffing the Lisbon office, first of all. So Louisa will tell you a little bit more about that. Thank you.
We will proceed in English, since our working language is in English in the NOV. First of all, on behalf of NOV, I would like to thank you, Ordem dos Engenheiros, for the invitation, since it's a great opportunity for us to promote our new office in Lisbon and our opportunities target for the engineers. Here today, I also have with me my colleague, Ricardo Cardoso. Ricardo Cardoso is working as a design engineer in the NOV Lisbon office, of course, and I'm working as HR. Okay, so thank you so much for coming. And now we will present you a very short movie about the NOV history. Okay.
This journey all begins with vision, know-how, and experience. It grows with trust. The challenges we face together will need tenacity, capability, and a passionate spirit that really knows how to overcome. At National Oiwell Varco, we carry a deep history and a youthful exuberance that has come from years of breaking through the challenges and taking our industry to places they needed to go. Making a path for the industry is part of who we are. It is what we know. Our passion is for our family, the people of NOV, and the people we serve every day, bringing solutions that can make sense and can provide solid answers for the challenges we face. We continue to push our technology as well as our ability to support our partners' operations as we reach across the many processes. We continue to prove that leadership and an urge to push ourselves to new limits gives us an insatiable desire to listen and respond to the needs of the industry. NOV is searching out the new paths to make discovering and developing affordable energy an ongoing reality. From the extensive supply chain depth and breadth of operational expertise to the holistic view of everything that works to drill wells. From the fluids to the pumps. From the crown to the bit. From flow line to disposal. From the deserts to the deepest ocean and the coldest climates. Our exciting new operating system, Novos, has inspired our partners to adapt their algorithms so they can move forward faster. Our system connected all the control systems on a rig, moving to an app-driven, automated or autonomous operation, connecting all the dots across the drilling operations. The possibilities are immense. Working throughout the life cycle of the assets, we have grown our technology over these years to include intervention and stimulation, as well as floating production and transportation. The reach of NOV continues to search for new ways to deliver real solutions. At NOV, we are applying our energy towards new frontiers, new arenas, and better ways for a better life. Forward thinking.
Okay. Have you already before heard about NOV, or is it the first time that you heard about NOV? First time? Okay, it's the first time. Okay, great. It's also great. So then it's an opportunity for us to promote NOV. So NOV is now expanding job opportunities in Portugal since we opened a new office in May in Lisbon. We have an office in the Expo area in Lisbon. And as you could see on the film, we in the NOV, we have a very clear vision of the future. And we, NOV, we are the oldest, leading and the most innovative supplier of drilling and handling equipment and related services to the oil and gas industry, to the oil and gas sector, so sorry. We have a global presence, and now we also have an office in Lisbon, which makes us very proud of our new office. Some figures about NOV. NOV, and maybe I should let you know that NOV, it's an American company. We are not a Norwegian company, we're an American company. But NOV have the main, or one of the main branch office in Europe. It's in Norway. And we, the Lisbon office, the new office in Lisbon, we belong to NOV Norway. This is the reason why it's NOVN. Okay, so in this sense, we could consider that the Lisbon office, we are, since we are a branch of NOV Norway, we are a Norwegian company. At least our work environment, it's very focused on Norwegian style. Okay. As you could see, just information about the number of employees we have. We have 63,000 employees. And just on the Rig Solutions, we have 21,000. And just in Rig Solutions in Norway, we have 4,000. But as I know, we have now at the moment, I didn't update it, so sorry, we have around 4,200, okay, just working in the Rig Solutions. Some information about revenue. And as I explained, we have our headquarters in Houston, in Texas, since we are an American company. And this is some information about our leaders. And our operation manager, the Portuguese operation manager, is Kenneth Karikstad. Since we report to NOV Norway, we will be focused on Rig Solutions, since he's our branch in Norway, Rig Solutions. And just also some information for you about Rig Solutions in Norway. And in Norway, we have over 2,000 employees. And our main office are in Kristiansand, in the south part of Norway. And in Kristiansand, we have our main office in Kristiansand. And we are, in the southern part of Norway, we are the biggest employer. Our average age in NOV is 36 years old, so it's quite young team. And we are very proud of because 25 of our employees are women. So, and 80% of our employees have a degree. We in the Lisbon office, we will try as much as possible to keep the same style. So we would like also to achieve these 25 employees women, so we also need female engineers. And of course, the average age will be around, most probably, 36 or even a little bit less. This is some of the main products we have in the Rig Solutions. Maybe some of them are quite new for you, but I must be honest with you, also for me. On the top, on the bottom, you could see training, because also NOV provide training about our products and support to our clients, and we are strong on this level as well. Some of our product expertise, and yeah, I will talk a little bit more about this, the areas that we have in the Lisbon office. And in the NOV, we try, of course, to design constantly and improve our products. And to be possible to achieve this, we have to have a different range of disciplines inside of NOV. And as you could see, we have different disciplines, and we also will have them in the Lisbon office. The only one that we'll not have in the Lisbon office is the first one, technical safety. This will be only available in Norway, not in the Lisbon office. As I told you before, we just opened our office in May. So we are a completely new office, and it's a very nice office, very, very nice office. We are very proud of our office. And we, the Lisbon office, we will provide mainly resources for 3 places, different places in Norway. We will provide to Stavanger, Asker, and Kristiansand. We have, till now, at the moment, we have 40 engineers. But we will be very happy, because it's our objective until January to have between 70 and 80 engineers working in the Lisbon office. Okay, so we have a lot of work to do to achieve this commitment with Norway, NOV Norway. Some information about the positions we are now promoting, but mainly we could let you know that we are recruiting mechanical design engineers. And you could find some information about the tools, but these tools doesn't mean that you have to be able to work with them. But of course, we will be happy if the mechanical engineers will be ready to work with Inventor and AutoCAD, absolutely. But it's not mandatory, just for you to know what kind of tools you need to have to work as mechanical engineer in NOV, in Lisbon office. We are also trying to recruit drawing and drafting checkers. In this case, it will be necessary to have some years of experience. It's really relevant. Structural calculations, engineers, software control systems, and HMI as well. Hydraulic and pipe design, we are also recruiting. This will be a mix of, and this is the same that it's happening now at the moment, and Ricardo could also share this information with you, because in the Lisbon office right now we have a mix between completely newly educated engineers and engineers with 11 and 12 years of experience. And we will try to keep this mix of engineers concerning this experience. We are working with a recruitment company, Eli Syvertsen. I believe that some of you noticed this already. This was a very, very, very brief presentation about NOV, just for you to have some ideas about the company and our recruitment needs. If you would like, because this is one of the reasons why Ricardo is today with me, because we believe that some of you could also like to get some information concerning the experience in the Lisbon office. So you could please ask Ricardo if he's happy or not with his experience. Just to let you know one thing by the hand. On the beginning of this seminar, it was mentioned that it was a mix when the Portuguese engineers were trying to find a work abroad. But of course, it's really relevant that you have this experience in Norway. Norway is a wonderful country. But what makes us also very proud today, me and Ricardo, is that at the moment, you could also have these opportunities in Portugal. And of course, we also believe that in the future will be also not nowadays, we are not so relevant today as NOV Lisbon, but we believe that very soon, 3-4 years, will be also a very important company in Portugal. So we need to recruit engineers. We need you as well to stay in Lisbon. Okay?
Maybe you could talk a little bit about this experience.
Stand up? Or? Stand up? Okay.
You want to talk a little bit about the experience?
Okay, so I'm a mechanical engineer. I've been working in these kind of structures for the last 8 years, and I took this challenge of this Lisbon office, and I can tell it has been a great experience. So we are building a new team. So of course there are challenges, but being on this sector, on this oil and gas sector, it has been amazing to work on this. So, namely on the National Oiwell Varco, I've been working in the derricks system. So it's a huge machine on a drill ship. This is our core. So to work on this kind of drilling equipment. So I don't know what to say more, but if you have any more questions, or please ask it.
I would just like to say one thing, and it is, if you have an experience from NOV, you can get any job in any company in Norway afterwards. So it's a very recognized and it's a very good company.
Yes, we got all the training we need. Yeah. We have all the tools, so we have everything to make a good job. So please apply. We have 40 vacancies, right? And you need one, so please apply. So please ask questions.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I tried to send my CV to NOV here in Portugal. I didn't find any place to send a CV.
You should please, because we are working with Kelly Services. So Kelly Services is now doing the first level of the recruitment process. Do you have in mind that Eli mentioned that Norwegian companies is very common to work with recruitment agencies? So you have to apply through the Kelly Services.
Okay.
But I could explain you on the stand outside, because we also have some information about the vacancies. We also have detailed information about the vacancies. But the main thing is to go to the webpage of Kelly Services, find our positions, and apply through Kelly Services. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for your wonderful presentation. My name is Luís Martins. I'm not sure this is the right place to put this question, but I was wondering, why did you come to Portugal? What's your mission? What do you want to do here?
Very good question. To be honest with you, you used to say why you decide to come to Portugal. But I, in a certain way, a little bit strategic, I didn't mention this, because I was wondering that you will ask about this, to be honest. And the reason why is because in the NOV, Norway, we have a very good experience with Portuguese engineers, a great experience with Portuguese engineers. So we have Portuguese engineers working in Stavanger, in Kristiansand, and Asker, it's Oslo. And the Portuguese engineers, as Eli explained you, fits very well in the Norwegian culture. So it's a great experience. And having this in mind, and of course, NOV need to recruit more engineers, and we don't have engineers in Norway, as you know. Eli also explained that. So we decided, since we are focused on Portuguese engineers, why not open an office in Lisbon? Because we know that we have engineers and qualified engineers in Portugal. So why not? Why not? This is the main reason. Of course, we should also be honest with you. This is not only the reason why. It's because in a certain way, it was also, and we were aware that it was also, we could save some costs opening our office in Lisbon. But in fact, it was more in the beginning. But nowadays we realize that it's not much, we don't save much cost. Because in fact, so just for you to know, the rent that we are paying now for our office is the same that we pay in Kristiansand. Okay? So we are not saving so much. And we are providing the same conditions in our office. So we treat well the engineers. So it's not the focus. It was more on the beginning, but now we are not so sure about this. And another thing is that when we design and when we provide equipment, the cost of labor is not the main factor. Is not the main factor. What is really, really relevant is to have engineers, because if we don't have engineers, we could not provide and we could not sell our products. This is the main focus. Another thing is, as Eli also mentioned and suggest you on the application to mention, is since we also have more clients now in Brazil than in before, Portuguese could also be a very good tool. Of course, we don't speak the same language, but we understand each other. So it's really important. And more than speak the same language, we could understand Portuguese a little bit more the Brazilian than the Norwegians. Because Portuguese and Norwegians, we are quite similar in some points. But it's a big gap between Norwegian and Brazilian people. So we could say that we'll be in the middle to try to communicate and try to bring good results for NOV. Okay?
I just would like to add something, and that is the fact that we know, well, we know some facts about Portugal, and people go on holiday to Portugal. And we think it's a fantastic country, and we don't understand how anybody would like to leave Portugal. So, of course, they want to be in a place where there is abundance of engineers, and it is here in Portugal. They think that you will be more happy working in Portugal than actually having to go to Norway. So they thought that the best thing would be to open an office here. You could be in Portugal, live in Portugal, work under Norwegian conditions, and that they will attract more engineers by having their own office here. Well, the salaries also, you have to see one thing. The living costs in Norway are higher than in Portugal, with the exception of housing. Housing could be more or less the same, but it's more expensive life in general. I mean, in Norway, it costs more for food, restaurants. Even though your cars are expensive, it's more expensive in Norway, and life in general. So the salaries reflect this fact. But you have a good life here in Portugal with the salary from NOV.
Absolutely. We have a very competitive salaries. Absolutely. But you should have in mind that you don't pay in Portugal 10 euros for a glass of wine. Have this in mind. Yes, it's not 11 euros. So, of course, we could not offer the same salaries, but they are really competitive. They are really competitive.
At all. That should be a concern at all. You will be very pleased to work for NOV. I can assure you. And I was still looking for a job outside, abroad, namely in Norway. And me, like most of my colleagues, we were looking abroad too. And we are very pleased with our choice. So we are hoping for you, okay?
No, it's true. Maybe I should not share this with you, but anyway, we are trying to be as much as possible honest. Yes, we are honest. Because, in fact, as Ricardo mentioned, the majority of our engineers, they were before focused to move to Norway. But as I know, the reason why they were focused to go to Norway, it's because they could not find alternative in Portugal, because they have to have another kind of experience working in a different environment. But when because some of them just went some of the job fairs that we have been, and when they realized that we were recruiting for Portugal, they were extremely happy. I know that. And as you could, and I assume that you know, since I am working as HR, one of my main tasks is to keep the engineers working in the Lisbon office, of course. I assume that you know that. So we should also always be focused that engineers are motivated and happy to work in the Lisbon office. But it's, till now, I could let you know that they are so motivated, and I don't need to do anything. They are so motivated, so happy, and all of them, they share with me that it's NOV Lisbon meet their expectations. So I don't think it will be a problem, no. No more questions? No. Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
So, I think it was an excellent conference between how to work and how to live in Norway. So I would like to thank you to EURES organization and in particular the Norway Embassy, Ms. Eli Syvertsen, and all the companies representatives here. And naturally, the Ordem dos Engenheiros have, and the Colégio de Mecânica have this conference in particular to give you all these contacts with directly with these Norway companies. And sincerely, I hope that your contacts could be a beginning, a global network for you give, and in particular, you can, in the near future, receive a real contract for job outside of this country. So we finish like this. I do hope that you have good luck in these contracts.